Hi, my name's Lee. I'm the owner of the New England Flame. I'm one of the people that you'll talk to as we're working through things. In the last few weeks, as we've come into the year 2013, we've added some new writers, we've added some new thought process. We have people that have begun to sell for us and to bring businesses and organizations in, helping them get on board with advertising and those kind of things. But I want to just carry through with something that I just feel like is very, very important. A few years ago, I was confronted with the idea that I really love community. That was never an unknown to me. But I felt like I was hearing that I was to help people initiate hubs of community. And I began to look all over at that. What does that mean? I was so intrigued with it that I registered domain names for registration. hubsofcommunity.com, .org, .net, and through a series of events I just began to put those things in play. I always like hanging out with people that love community. And the New England Flame, I really believe, has the potential to be a great community. And so what I've asked of people in the last day or so is I've asked people to come together and just begin to write about their community. It doesn't have to be a lot. I grew up in a generation, I'm 57 years old, I grew up in a generation where I remember that we had frequently what seemed like little old ladies that would write about their communities. And I remember even some of the phone conversations where you would have the lady, the operator, would be plugging in and she'd be talking to someone else about what had happened and things like that. And I grew up in those generations. And so what I feel like I want to do is I want to help people get connected to their community. It's a great opportunity for an individual, for a church group or church gathering to get together and begin to investigate their community. There's so many things that come out of a community. So many of us in the church realm want to reach communities, and so many of us in the business realm just want to reach people. And so many of us are just looking around and saying, hey, economically this is distressed and that's been going wrong, and you know, not everything is all we thought it was going to be. I'm firmly convinced of the idea that when we come together in fashion of community, I recognize that the social media, things like Facebook, it's the third largest nation in the world. It's got over 1 billion people. And yet there's something about being in connection with one another. And sometimes we do that just by sharing our stories. My children, my friends, my family, they would all tell you that I like stories. I like to know the history of something. Even today, I just began to do some research on something, and I fully expected that it was going to take me 5 minutes, and 5 hours later I was still on the same subject because so intrigued was I. If you've noticed things about the New England Flame, you'll notice that I love history. Our Pinterest page has a lot about history and covered bridges and places of interest. I love the Montshire Museum. I love the Shelburne Museum. I love the Peabody Museum in New Haven, Connecticut. I love those places. And I believe that there's a lot of people that would love those if they only knew about those things in a different context or just going to a website. So here's what I want to encourage you to do. How about you give some thought to this, and if you live in New England, you write me 1 or 2 paragraphs about what your community looks like. I have friends that live in Cheshire, Connecticut. I have friends that live in Burlington, Vermont. I have friends that live in Waterville, Maine. I have friends all over New England. You know, places like that. I'd love to see what you have to say about your community, but I think more importantly, a lot of our readers would love to see what you have to say about your community. Sometimes some of us, especially in the economic circumstances, I know I have my brother, he's looking at 3 jobs right now. He currently lives in a place called Framingham, Mass, and he's looking at 1 on the Cape and 1 up in Pepperell, Mass, and 1 that would allow him to work from home, but it's out in the middle of Minnesota. And so you know, he'll have the opportunity to investigate other communities, and sometimes when you have a wife or you have family, you know, you have children, you're looking to find out what the thread of, you know, the embroidery of their community looks like. I recently moved to Keene, New Hampshire from Springfield, Vermont after living there for nearly 20 years. And Keene is way different than Springfield, Vermont. It's not about a good, bad thing, it's about a different thing. And there's things that I'm learning even now about where I live. And so what I'd like you to ask you to do is just consider writing a few paragraphs. And if you decide you want to do something more regular, it can be about the local events that go on in your town. Maybe it's an opera, maybe it's a meeting house, or maybe it's a dance at one of the VFWs or the Moose Lodges, those kind of things. Hey, I think people are interested in those things. So I would just say to you, considering more than just being part of the community, consider investigating the community. Consider how you can let people know about your community. Thank you. God bless you. Look forward to hearing from you.